position for the end of the race.
Some of the crew chiefs have said they may not even change tires if this race goes the full distance.
So a lot of strategy comes into play, and remember, weather could be another issue, another unique, I guess, characteristic of this racetrack is they go through the tri-oval, but the start-finish line isn't there. It's actually just past the exit of pit road. Coming up to it, green flag in the air, we're underway from Talladega.
Remember, Milka Duda's no stranger to the front row. She sat on the front row at Daytona, and I think led the first 10 or 11 laps.
Right now, I'm guessing her strategy would be to hug that yellow line. If they're going to go by, they're going to have to go by on the outside. Mason Mingus on the outside running door to door as they go down the backstretch.
So Grant Enfinger jump in behind Milka Duda, so that should help that inside line.
The one thing Mason Mingus has to wait on right now is obviously he's got some guys behind him, but a lot of guys are ducking off that outside line, getting to the bottom as quick as they can. It's obviously the preferred way around right now. So he's going to want to get in line as quickly as he can, but he wants to make sure he stays up as far as he is right now.
Up to speed, working through 3 and 4 and back into the tri-oval. Milka Duda looks as though she's going to lead lap number 1 of 94.
She's almost getting too far up front. If they ever get single file behind her, then they will have a lot of momentum when they get to her. But right now, they're still side by side.
One of the things that really shows right there is obviously how strong Milka's car is. She's out there in front, but you're exactly right. If they get a true line going, it won't take a whole lot to get that momentum rolling and be able to pass her.
And you see them 2 by 2 behind that 35. They get 2 distinct lines running very well around the track now.
You know, one of the things with the ARCA Racing Series is that obviously you have a lot of guys that are trying to get their rookie stripes taken off, if you will, and we see Mason Mingus actually making the outside work there. One of the things is not a lot of these guys have experience if they didn't run Daytona or if they've not run in the ARCA Series before. Looks like we've got a caution out here.
We're hearing there's some debris just past our position here at the start-finish line.
So the caution comes out for the first time. We talked a lot about the 15 of John West Townley having probably one of the fastest cars here, but wasn't making up a lot of ground. Take a look at the initial start here with the 15.
Yeah, the ARC officials were watching this. They said he jumped out of line, but he did not improve his position. He's going to pull back behind the 97, I believe, of Roger Carter. He certainly improved his position right there. I'm sure the ARC officials will continue to look at that.
It's hard. It's hard whenever you're like that because obviously you want to go when the green flag comes out.
Caution at lap 2 because of some debris. Now, ARCA Racing Series lining them up single file. If you're a lap down, you can get to the inside line. So that makes it a little bit different on the restart here, especially for these drivers that are up in the top 5 or so, because they're not going to get hung out on an outside line.
It shouldn't be quite as crazy as it is on a double file restart like NASCAR does.
Let's go back down to the infield, Jim Trejo.
Well, as you guys can imagine, a lot of guys on pit road here on the pit boxes talking to their drivers about the weather. I know we're only 4 laps into this, but if we get to halfway, these tanks are 22 gallons. They can get to the halfway point, so they're talking about strategy. Do we come early? Do we come just in time to get enough fuel in these cars to the finish? The weather's helping play that factor as well for these crew chiefs.
You know, I was talking to Milka Duda's crew chief, Kevin Caldwell, and he said, hey, if it looks like it might rain, we may just stay out and try to run it till the thing gets close on fuel to try to keep the track position.
Well, the halfway mark is obviously short of what we feel like the pit window is, so they could probably do that. The only downside is if a guy comes in a little early and we do end up going the full distance, they might be in trouble as far as track position goes at the end of the race.
And Milka Duda out in front, leading this field. Mason Mingus will restart second. Grant Enfinger, Mason Mitchell, and Justin Boston are your top 5. They're working their way through the tri-oval. Green flag back in the air, we're back underway.
Ryan Kimmel jumps to the outside there to make a move. Pulls up beside the 77 of Tom Hesser.
On a single file restart, you can jump to the outside.
Just ready to say, I want to make sure everyone knows on that initial start, you are not able to advance your position before you get to the start-finish line. On restarts, once the green comes out, you can go to the outside to make a pass.
You see some guys getting pretty wide there, which, you know, Frank jumped to the outside and it seemed like stalled out a little bit as he was going. We're on board here, the 82 of Sean Cord. You know, obviously they're trying to get as far up as they can, try to get back in line. That inside line looks pretty tight, and it looks like it's going to be hard to get back down there.
We saw Mason Mingus lead that outside line and was able to stay door to door with Milcaduno at the start of the race. We'll see if the second line or outside line will build back up, and if they can make some ground on this inside line.
You know, we talk about this pit window being so long, 60, 65 laps. John West Townley pitted on lap 13 at Daytona of an 80-lap race. So we ran 67 laps. That's 167 and a half miles that he was able to run on one tank.
It's good fuel mileage.
It's great
Good to know fuel mileage.
And once again, the ARCA Racing Series, when we come to Daytona or Talladega, has a restrictor plate on these motors to make sure that they don't get ridiculous speeds, like when Bill Venturini set the pole here back in the 80s over 200 miles an hour.
205 miles an hour, as a matter of fact. And I think they're restricted to about 450 horsepower is what these engines are putting out right now.
These cars are pretty aerodynamic compared to what we see in the Cup Series and the Nationwide Series. So they obviously want to restrict them just a little bit more because they cut through the air better. You know, one of the things we see right now is Milcaduno is actually running a little higher than the rest of the cars behind her. I don't know if that's strategy or just the line she wants to run, but if she's not careful, it'll be easy for some of those guys to get underneath of her.
If she leaves a car width there, then somebody's going to grab that hole there, and she's going to find herself on the outside line, and everyone's going to drive by on the inside.
Caught a glimpse of the 22 of Corbin Forrester and the 15 of John West Townley. They were working together at the back of the field. Those were two of the cars that had their time disallowed from qualifying and had to restart or start this race at the back of the field. Now they're trying to make that outside line work, and the two cars in tandem working on the high side of this racetrack.
Yeah, there's John West in the 15, Corbin Forrester in the 22.
See the 66 of Mark Thompson there. He started in the rear as well. So you got three guys that are trying to make that outside work, and if they can get up there without losing the actual front of the draft, that may be a good way to advance their position quite a bit. You know, not only now but at the end of the race.
Mark Thompson has a lot of experience. He actually has 8 top 10 finishes here and 13 starts, so he knows how to get around this place.
Mark Thompson, one of the elder drivers in the field at 61 years old. 2 wins already in the ARCA Racing Series. Those were a couple years back in 2007, the last time he went to victory lane.
Well, if it's any consolation, I actually, when I started my ARCA racing career, we bought some of the assets from when Mark Thompson raced full-time. And there was about I think it was a 93 or 94 Speedway car. We got a challenge for the lead here. We got Mason Mingus and Grant Enfinger.
Mingus had some help. Grant Enfinger pushing him by that 35, but Enfinger not able to clear the 35, gets hung out, and so Grant Enfinger's going to fall back, but Mason Mingus out in front of the field.
And I think that's a little bit of inexperience right there on Mason Mingus's part, because normally your spotter would say, okay, the 90's not clear yet. Stay up with a 90. Not clear because we watched Spencer Gallagher in the 23 car move by Grant Enfinger.
Unfortunately, Grant's had a really strong race car this weekend. You know, they qualified well, they practiced well, and I'm sure, you know, obviously for him, he wants to get as many spots as he can right here. He pushed the 32 out there, and like you said, he just didn't get clear. And side drafting here is so important. If you can get next to a guy, you can drag their engine down quite a few hundred RPMs, which really accelerates your car and slows them down. And obviously, we see him on the outside with a little bit of help there, but it's going to be a long road to get back up there into the 3rd position like he was.
Justin, earlier today, you were out there for qualifying for the Nationwide Series, qualified 5th. Congratulations for that. How big is the wind here? You're getting a huge gust of wind down the back stretch, but how much does it affect your car when you come down the front stretch?
Well, when your car's by yourself, it's really not that bad, like today in qualifying. But when you're out there and you're drafting, especially like these guys are, it changes everything, because the way that you hold the steering wheel, the amount of pressure you put on the steering wheel, the way the cars in front of you and behind you react, it really changes just every aspect of driving these race cars. And we see the flags just pretty much straight out, obviously with the weather coming in. So inside these cars, it's moving them around, and I hate saying it, but unfortunately, that's usually what challenges these guys to get into.
Right now, we've got a couple that have slipped down below that yellow line.
We
didn't look
talked about
like they were advancing their position. It looked like they were catching their car.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about going out of bounds. As long as you don't advance your position, you're more than welcome to race down there. But it's tough to not advance if the guy in front of you gets a little squirrely. But if you're the one getting squirrely, you're glad that it's paved enough.
Riding with Spencer Gallagher, never lifting. I mean, he's running a couple feet away from the car in front of him, never lifting.
You know, one of the things you do here is you drag the brake. When you're catching the guy in front of you, you're getting a good run, you'll actually drag the brake. Or if you just have too good of a run, you pull out the outside like Grant Enfinger did earlier, and it either works or it doesn't. But Spencer's actually coming off of his career best finish last week at Salem Speedway with a second. Actually was leading with a green light checker towards the end. So I know those guys were really happy with second, although I'm sure they would have loved to have won, but did a great job last week.
Frank Hill up there in that bright yellow, number 44, riding along with Sean Cord, moving by Tom Hesser. You see the second pack now has caught that first pack. We saw Grant Enfinger try on the outside, finally gave up the fight, moved back to the inside. Now we're 3 wide.
3 wide as they're working their way through 3 and 4, coming to the tri-oval. Jim.
And the 82 on the outside there for a very good reason, wants to reconnect with Frank Kimmel. They connected to 4th and 5th at Daytona in these very same race cars. Sean Cord told me just before he climbed in, I want to do what I can to work with Frank. He's better ahead of me, I'm better pushing him. And Cord now on the outside trying to reconnect now with that bright yellow 44. He plans on doing that all day long if he can help it.
He's got a good car behind him too. You see the 15 car, John Westelli is pulled in behind Sean Cord.
And the 77 of Tom Hessert is behind that 44 of Frank Kimmel right now. I'm sure Tom Hessert would also like to work with Frank Kimmel at this racetrack.
We actually see the 09, Frank getting the backbone to the 09, or the 90 of Grant Enfinger. So you're going to have this outside row with some really good cars in it that maybe didn't have great starting positions. The other thing is, with talking about Sean Cord right there, relationships at a super speedway race mean a lot. It doesn't matter how good the other cars are. It doesn't matter what past history is as far as other racetracks. When you get to these restrictor plate races and you have somebody you work well with, you got to use them to your advantage as much as you can.
And sometimes it may be